But if I go to a school, I get 1,000 young volunteers who are ready to give their life for it. They love doing these projects, and especially literacy project is very dear to them, as we found out, because it captures imagination of the young child, 5 to 12th grade student, and it gives them hands-on tools to go do something with it, and it also strikes their sense of idealism, because this teenage years are the age of idealism, and they really want to do something for the world, and we want to capture that.
Today with us, we have Sunita Gandhi, who's the founder secretary of the Disruptive Literacy Partnership. After completing a PhD in physics from Cambridge University, she worked as an economist at the World Bank, Washington, D.C. for 10 years. She left her job and returned to India to work on literacy of the socio-economically disadvantaged people. In 2014, she initiated the Global Dream Disruptive Literacy Program and developed groundbreaking new methodologies to make people literate in record time. Sunita is also Vice-Chairperson of India Literacy Board. She also supports her family to run the world's largest school, City Montessori School, Lucknow, which is both a Guinness World Record holder and a recipient of the UNESCO Prize for Peace Education. Sunita has been recognized as Educator of the Year 2015 by the India Book of Records and has been felicitated by the government as a Visionary of Uttar Pradesh. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Gandhi. I look forward to our conversation.
Thank you, Sparsh. I actually look forward as well. Thank you so much.
So my first question to you is, what was it about the domain of education that motivated you to work in it?
Okay, so for me, it has been not a conscious choice, though at some point it was a conscious choice to move back to India. But I was brought up in a family of educators. So breakfast, lunch, dinner, all time talk was about education. And then I went and studied physics in England, did my undergrad and PhD in physics, and then landed up a job as an economist at the World Bank in Washington, D.C. And at some point, I had this feeling that I really ought to get back, because my parents could have needed me at that time, I felt, and also because I wanted to really use all that worldwide expertise that I had gained in the meantime, 26 years abroad, and traveled to some 49 countries. I felt I needed to come back and use that for something more direct in India, like working with the underprivileged and their literacy and their numeracy and their education. So that was my calling, I felt. I had to come back and do that, more squarely, more directly.
It would be absolutely correct to say that you have also done enough justice to it, and this is worth appreciating, ma'am. So my follow-up question then to you is, what is the role of Devi Sansthan in solving the literacy crisis in India?
Okay, so when we say solving the literacy crisis, a very good question, because it has been an enigma of sorts for years. We've not solved it. We've improved on literacy, and congratulations to the government. But I think that given our resources and our expertise, I would say, across the country, that it should have been possible to make India far more literate by now. In fact, all fully literate. So maybe because it is never a big manifesto, part of the manifesto of the governments. Education seems to slip by. It's not a major issue. It's a long-term goal and so forth. So I understand that, but I think that in many countries that have done really well in education, they have put education at the forefront of their country's development. So it has happened inadvertently. And in fact, last year, I think it was very exciting to receive the 2020 NEP, New Education Policy, which is extremely progressive. So the problem is big. The solutions are few and far between, because everybody's wondering which way to go. The traditional ways where we tend to stick to. We keep fine-tuning a traditional way of doing something, and that creates an impact, but it's a marginal impact. So what you want is a deep-rooted impact, and for that, what I've been doing with all this, policy work I've been doing, is to look for solutions that are strategic, that are catalytic. So what could be a catalytic approach? So, for example, if we set up a large-scale demo of our idea for literacy and numeracy, and it produces huge variation to the current status quo, then I feel we will make a much bigger impact, because it'll become an overnight kind of success story for everybody to look into. Because there are a lot of people who talk about, good ideas, features and all that, but we need to really show traction. We need to show some kind of success at the ground level. And that's not always easy to create, because basically, ultimately, we need partners to work on that. And before we go into the partnership, we have to create that demonstration value in our project. So it's a process, and that takes time. So since I came back to India, I became the president of Devi Sansthan in 2014, and I started to research ideas on how can you make, that is the number one proposition, how can you make an illiterate person or a child literate in the shortest possible time? And I'd set the goal of 1 month. Now that seems obviously very impossible. How can you make somebody literate in a month? And that means going from literally ground zero, not knowing a single alphabet, to being able to read a newspaper in 1 month. And that also, guess what, with 15 minutes per day only. So 30 days, 15 minutes per day, and being able to read a newspaper. And we have accomplished that, right? So a lot of our learners can do that. There are some that take longer, but a lot of our learners actually are capable of reading a newspaper. Now, sounds very unbelievable. So we need to, look at the laboratory and look at results. We've implemented it, for example, in 81 government schools of Lucknow on a pilot basis, and we collected data. So within 37 days of involvement, there was a doubling of reading levels in primary grades 1 through 5. Now that is, of course, very difficult, because you have to train the person who is teaching. That also was included in those days. And empowerment, all that. So you can imagine that, and now we've come out with what we're calling a 90-day challenge. Okay, so hit or miss, in 90 days, you should be able to make every child capable of reading a newspaper. I'm doing a conference on the 15th, on the 19th, this coming Saturday, 19th of February, in which 5-year-olds are reading a newspaper, 5, 6, and 7-year-olds. And 5-year-olds are reading slowly, 6-year-olds are reading a little faster, and 7-year-olds are flawlessly reading a newspaper. Now, that's possible with every child. And they've, had those 3 months of learning, and then they've had the training in fluency. So 3 months is not a panacea for everything, but they should be capable of being able to read in 3 months. And then after that, it is basically the fluency training and reading lots of storybooks and a lot of comprehension activities. So all these are part of the school process, but we want now to go big with it. And we want to have a very big research laboratory, including, let's say, 200, 300, 1,000 schools. And that's when we'll be wanting international third-party evaluation of that, so that people can't say, oh, doesn't work. It's just a myth. And when we set up that and it actually happens, then I should think that we'll be able to scale it up in a big way. So we are acting as a catalyst. We are a drop in the ocean if you look at the problem. But if we're catalytic, we can probably reach that goal faster than if you're trying to be everything everywhere. And, so we're more like knowledge partners with the government.
That is very insightful to hear. Also, when you spoke about the process, it is strategic and in coherence with the urgency. So on those similar lines, I would like to ask that how can literacy be scaled up and low cost, and how can school children be leaders of change for the literacy?
Okay, fantastic question. So here, what we felt when we first created the toolkit, I call it the Global Dream Toolkit, and Disruptive Literacy Movement, we first enlisted students. Because if I go to you, you're an individual. I convert you, okay, I'll go teach my maid. But if I go to a school, I get 1,000 young volunteers who are ready to give their life for it. They love doing these projects. And especially literacy project is very dear to them, as we found out, because it captures imagination of the young child, 5 to 12th grade student, and it gives them hands-on tools to go do something with it. And it also strikes their sense of idealism, because this teenage years are the age of idealism, and they really want to do something for the world, and we want to capture that. And so it has a double benefit, if you like, or multiple benefits. One benefit is that society becomes more literate, and the second benefit is that the children are able to become more socially conscious, and bigger contributors to the country's development and the world's development. So I think this is this has been a powerful implementation modality. We took it up very first in 2014, when I discovered that this new methodology is really brilliant, is working. So at that time, I got so excited, I printed 80,000 of these toolkits, and they were given to the schools for their summer summer program, as each one teach one campaign, in which 67,000 children of more than 150 schools of Lucknow and nearby volunteered to take up this program. So we had a total of 80,000 people over time, because we had these 80,000 toolkits, but 67,000 of them were students. And end of the summer break, we wanted to see, is it really working? Are the children really doing what they're supposed to do? We collected some 5,000 on a sample basis, 5,000 what we call portfolios of the children's work with their learners. And then from that, a sample was taken out and analysis was done of the sample. And it was like the learners were taking 35 hours on average to become literate. And so children were playing games with them. They were doing all sorts of other things. But, beautiful testimonies from the children, the teachers, the principals, the parents. It was something. And then, we invited and honored these people. It was really powerful. So students, yes. And since then, we have done 500,000 students across the country, working in 13 Indian languages. So the toolkit was converted to many more languages, and now we have 15 Indian languages into which this toolkit exists, and 11 international languages as well, including French, Portuguese, Spanish, Swahili, Arabic, and so forth. So that was a powerful modality. We've done many other modalities, but yes, when you talk about students, this is a major force out there waiting to be empowered. They're looking for a project like this, and we just need the governments to understand that this would really actually produce multiple benefits.
That is really amazing, and this intent of catalyzing students is extremely empowering. It gives enough credibility as well as accountability to the students. All of this reflects that how much rigor would have gone in the process altogether. So Devi launched a highly innovative toolkit to promote literacy, the Global Dream program, that was later turned into a people's movement for making India literate. So what was the inspiration behind starting an initiative like this?
Right. So the toolkit is central because, a doctor needs his apparatus, medical instruments. A plumber needs his plumbing kit. A teacher of literacy, whether it's a young volunteer or older, needs some kind of a toolkit. So we called it a toolkit. It is actually very simple. 3 little booklets, 2 for literacy and 1 for numeracy. And so they're like 16 pages, 32 pages, and 24 pages. That's all. And imagine they're taking a learner from ground zero to grade 3 level. And it also has, the kit has a lot of cards that are perforated. You tear them into pieces, and they're picture cards and letter cards, they're number numeracy cards, and so forth. So basically, that is a toolkit. And for students, we also have a cover letter which says how they can make a portfolio of their work. So it describes the program for them a little more. And there are links, there are YouTube links, there are videos. And we've also now, over the COVID period, we've come up with an LMS, learning management system, in which there are videos that are interactive. And also there's pre-test, post-test of the learner. So it's all become scientific, and we didn't have those tools earlier. So it was more manual to collect data, to enter data, but now it's all automated. So I think that's the toolkit part. And then, how we are mobilizing a people's movement. See, a people's movement requires 3 things. One, it requires simplified learning materials, which we have. It requires government commitment to a time-bound mission. which is not there yet. It was there at some point in time. I think 30 years ago, it was in Ernakulam in Kerala. Then it went as a nationwide movement in different other cities, and they became very quickly literate. Like within a period of 1 year, many of these cities became fully literate. But that needs to be restarted. So what we did was to do a pilot of a people's movement in a village called Karoni, just to see how that would work. And here we had, door-to-door survey, which was facilitated by the teachers, the government school teachers of Karani village. We collected the data, we analyzed the data, we found out who's literate, who's illiterate. We could actually enumerate, name that person from 6 to 60 years of age. We did a whole kind of, going through with horns and, singing songs and motivating songs. We wrote a lot of motivational songs. We had the children participate in activities. We had a, eye checkup camp. We had all sorts of other things that were happening to build that momentum towards the movement. And we had 22 women who volunteered that also came out from the survey. We then trained these 22 women and gave them the wherewithal, that is the toolkit within a box, 20 toolkits with 2 mats and slate, chalk, and some other things, so they could get started on their journey to make that village literate. That was the people's movement equivalent. And what we found was fascinating for us, because we didn't pay these women. We just gave them the wherewithal. We gave them how to do it, training as well. And we gave them a bit of motivation along the way, brought them to Lucknow and appreciated them. On International Women's Day, we honored them and so forth. But basically, they worked for free. And I was really curious, gathering people every single day, bringing them to your home, teaching them, and doing it for over a period of time. How did they sustain their motivation? And they said that's because of 2 things. One, Samman, that we got a lot of respect in our village because of what we did. They called us teacher. And the second reason was we felt very good when we're serving our country. We felt that we should contribute to our country's development. And I think those are the sentiments, and I'm getting goosebumps as I talk about it. Those are the sentiments that we need to nurture in people and bring it out. Like a lot of times men would say, "Kyun padhe?" Why study? Why read? Give us some money, then we'll read. And they think, because you're an NGO, you must have received money and this and that. So over time, but the trust was built, and they realized that we're doing it as a service. And we got a lot of amazing outcome out of it. For example, these ladies, 22 of them, made 180 women literate in the first 2 months. And those 180 women took the National Literacy Mission examination that used to be held twice a year. So the August 2015 was theirs. And 135 of them passed, got their big certificates, beautiful golden certificates from the government. And that kind of thing really is exciting for everyone, including those who are involved at our end.
Thank you so much. I think this entire idea of participatory processes that you elaborated on is very inspiring, considering that these stakeholders are actually a part of the process, and building a way forward through them is very helpful as well as significant. On similar parallels, I would like to ask, how is the Global Dream program aligned to the new Nipun Bharat FLN mission?
Okay, so this is a good question again. Thank you. Basically, the breakaway methodology, the groundbreaking methodology, which is swift, quick, right? And it is something that anyone can pick up and run with. Like even a grade 3 pass or a village woman or a student of grade 5 is pretty impressive that anyone can do with it, right? So that was the research we thought we can only use for, let's say, the underprivileged children and so forth. But what we found is that the methodology can be used in a school in a slightly revised way with other processes mixed in, for example, peer learning. So because teachers, are very busy trying to finish the syllabus, we felt that initially because there's a huge gap created by the COVID, that we could actually have it as a 30-minute period within the school, where the teacher of the school only will be just unleashing this new process. And we are calling this ALPHA, which is ALFA, or Accelerating Learning for All. And the idea, there are only 2 booklets, they're not class-wise. It is almost like when we learn a language. For example, we're learning German, right? It doesn't matter what age we are, which class we're sitting in. We all start on ground zero. So similarly, the 2 alpha books are A and B. You start on A and then go into B and go to the end of B, and you're flawlessly reading a newspaper. Then you need to work on speed. So the rest of the year, we work on speed, reading more storybooks and newspapers. And then we work on, at the same time, we work on comprehension. So they say that if the children can read well, they can comprehend better. So comprehension goes side by side. So these are very much in line with what Nipun Bharat is trying to accomplish, which is foundational literacy and numeracy by 2026-27. And that's not very far away. If we have not done it all these years, how are we magically going to do it in the next 4 or 5 years? It seems almost implausible.
Yeah.
So the only way it is plausible is if we go with some kind of a groundbreaking new methodology that empowers the individual student to learn by self. Now, that is also, a lot of people say it's not possible. But we're sitting in a laboratory of a school which has 55,000 children. My own family runs school. We also have my experimental school, City International School, and others. We have the government school we've done the pilots in. We've had the out-of-school children we work with and adults. So we know that these things are working. And that's what excites us. We just hope there'll be enough belief by the people who are out there saying, look, let's give it a try. And why should they give it a try? Because have they a better solution? Right? If they don't have a better solution, then let's give it a try. And we're only talking about 30 minutes dent in the school's timetable. So every government should be willing to do that. Now, we do want it to be mainstream. We want it to be the modus operandi. We want it to be the way that teaching is done from here on into the future. And that will also happen. You wait and see. 5 years later, this will be the modus operandi because it has to be. It's quicker, it's better, it's more retention, it's more joyful for the children. They love working with each other, discovering the facts for themselves. We have, for example, we have Tina and Toto, two characters that are constantly doing a role play. So the children in a blended learning, in an online environment, can play with their own two hands. The entire thing is set up like that. And when they're with their peer in a classroom, they can work out things on their own. And it's just absolutely magical. And guess what? It is going places. We have so much interest in other countries. The entire country of Maldives is taking up our program, and all the government schools, the 230 government schools of Maldives are taking up our program starting March. We have also Kupanda sisters in Guyana. We've got the US, some of the superintendents of schools in California, and a adult literacy program called Literacy Chicago are taking it in the US. We're looking at Brazil. We're looking at Portugal. We're looking at, Brazil for Portuguese. We're looking at Colombia. We're looking at many countries where the people are taking enormous interest in this methodology because it is a breakaway methodology. It is working for the children and for the adults.
Definitely. So whenever you talk about it, it's mostly the high points. Was there any time when you were a little disappointed by either the response or it specifically did not align with the integrities of the project?
Surely. I mean, we've been hugely disappointed at times. For example, people just don't understand it. They don't believe this is possible. Yeah. And even if they believe it is possible, they don't want to try it out because they're fearful of what might happen. We have to be more courageous for the children. And here I'm a pedagogue. I'm an educator. I've been working in the trenches with the children. I've been working daily with the teachers and the children. I've been implementing this in the classrooms. So is it not some validity? So yes, there are disappointments in the sense that people don't believe it, but we are saying, okay, let's go to people who are willing to believe, to give us the opportunity to do it. And we are getting a lot of traction. Like, as I mentioned to you, Maldives, we also got Jharkhand now. We have got an MOU with Jharkhand. We have got an MOU with Mizoram. So, and a government order in Mizoram. So I think this is going to happen. We just started. We only just started to come out of the woodwork. Nobody has heard of us really, actually, because we were doing this in the isolation of our own schools and as a laboratory, and then getting it out through the schools across the country, developing the different languages, developing the LMS. So we're really solidifying our model, and now we're ready to rock and roll.
I believe it is at a really good point as of now and would achieve even bigger, and especially thinking about working in the Indian context with a bottom-up approach that tends to address even the unlaid parameters is extremely inspiring. And I know for sure that the initiative would reach even greater heights than you're imagining it to. So what is the project Global Dream 2F2E all about? And how is it using the innovative curriculum to give the gift of education to someone who has only dreamt of it somewhere?
Okay, so Global Dream is the name of our campaign, and we're now calling it Global Dream Disruptive Literacy Campaign. which has partners from now across the world, as I mentioned, many countries now. The 2F2E was really the idea that they need the 2F is for foundational and functional literacy and financial literacy. So they were the 2Fs, and 2E is basically education and also entrepreneurship, because they need to be able to make use of their learning to go and make a living for their family, or better living for their family. We see enormous change in the psychology of the person who becomes literate. They suddenly see the world in a different way. It's like, feeling good about yourself. It's like feeling confident that I can now manage my life. Fear goes away. There's more courage. So all these things, and self-esteem, of course, we see all this immediately. But the next thing they ask is, can we do something to improve our incomes? And I think that's where we need to tie up with people who are actually experts in that field. We're experts in the pedagogy, but we really want to partner with those people as well.
This knowledge empowerment is something we all need to learn and take inspiration from. So lastly, what are some of the future areas that you're looking to explore in the near future?
Okay, so we are looking for partners across the country. We're starting to work in the aspirational districts, and there are 112 of them in India. I would love to see the global dream goes into all of them, and in all our states. Even though initially they might do it as short or small implementations, I'm looking forward, and that's what we need to forge ahead with, is large-scale implementation like in the Maldives. So that's 213 schools. I hope it'll be 2,000 schools and then 20,000 schools. So this is the vision forward. And that's for India to become literate. I'm also looking for people abroad who will bring funds to India to make India a more literate place. But then, we need to see partners here, especially the government, that gives us a bit more, shoulder to say, yes, let's go do it.
That brings us to the end of the interview. And thank you for joining us again. It was lovely interacting with you. And I hope I get an opportunity to connect with you again someday. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sparsh. You've been absolutely very special. Thank you so much indeed.